big reasons I like doing this show, outside of the obvious, MMA is cool and talking about it is fun, is that I get to go over periods of time and significant moments that I missed. I wasn't really plugged into the sport when women's MMA was starting to come up. I had no idea who Gina Carano was, and I had no idea why Cris Cyborg was such a big deal and why Dana White hated her so much. So as we go in today, the biggest women's mixed martial arts fight of all time up until this point, I get to see why it was such a big deal, with completely fresh eyes and almost no bias against any of the fighters. The day is Saturday, August 15th, 2009. We are once again at the Strikeforce's stomping ground of the HP Pavilion. 13,976 people paid a total of $736,000, and 576,000 viewers were watching at home on Showtime. Showtime! We're gonna milk Yellow Jackets dry too. This is the first time ever that two women are main eventing a major MMA card. And for the first time, a women's MMA championship fight can go 5 5-minute rounds. Our first fight on the main card today is Mike Kyle versus Fabrizio Verdum. We start out quick with a trade in the middle of the octagon with Kyle getting the better of it. Verdum throws a kick that gets caught and has to back up all the way to the cage. Verdum goes for a takedown but gets sprawled on, and eventually he overpowers Kyle to get top control, but he gets an armbar for his trouble. Verdum lets him up for a little bit, but then comes right back down with a guillotine. Kyle tries to drive his way through it, but that's not working so hot. It's in tight, and it's a tap out. BJJ at its finest. I'm going to give this fight a 6. It was way too quick for me to really get into it, but it is very high paced. A lot of stuff is going on. Verdum is so fast when it comes to his submissions, so to fight somebody like him must be exhausting. Here's something you don't see often, or we didn't used to anyway. It is an interim title defense as Gilbert Melendez takes on Matsuhiro Ishida. Melendez has had a weird year. After losing the lightweight belt to Josh Thompson, he would go on to win the interim championship in the very next fight against Roberto Dam. Josh Thompson, who was set to unify his lightweight championship with the interim champion, was unable to do so because of injury, so we are having what will soon be known as the Tom Aspinall. We're defending an interim belt. Mitsuhiro Ishida, who has competed in Shudo, Strikeforce, Pride, Dream, and Deep, is a former Shudo Pacific Rim welterweight champion, and is responsible for Melendez's first loss ever, breaking his 13-fight win streak at the Saitama Super Arena. Ishida tries for a takedown, but immediately aborts it after he realizes that ain't gonna happen. But he does get a left jab in, followed by a left high kick that Melendez begs off. Melendez holds the center of the cage pretty well with a couple of short jabs that forces Ishida to go through the punches to get a takedown. Melendez gets a couple of good shots and a combo ending with a stiff right hand. Ishida tries to go for another takedown attempt, but Melendez is just dogged and not letting it go. Eventually, Ishida sees that and tries for a rear naked choke, and he does get his back and gets him to the ground. Before round 2, we get future Strikeforce legend Herschel Walker in the audience. He says he's a big fan of Gina Carano. You don't say. Melendez holds the center of the octagon, and Ishida is trying his damnedest to breach that defense. Melendez is landing a couple of nice jabs to keep his position as Ishida tries for another takedown but gets sprawled on once again. Melendez opens with a bunch of knees to the lower body. They break off, and Melendez just starts to tee off with a heavy elbow. The effort is starting to get to Ishida. His hands drop a little bit. He starts breathing out of his mouth. A looping left hand by Melendez as he closes in up against the cage. Once again, he starts throwing a combo to daze Ishida. Ishida is literally on his knees, and Melendez uses his free hand to just open up a couple of shots against his head. Ishida tries to stand up but gets taken down for his trouble. Crushing blows to the lower body as the fight ends. Round 3, Melendez and Ishida starts trading in the center. Ishida does try throwing some big bombs, but he's getting completely outpaced by Melendez. Ishida sprawls for another takedown as they start to trade up against the cage. A thunderous right hand by Melendez, and it's getting ugly. And then just starts teeing off on the side of Ishida's face. The referee jumps in, and that is game. It is Melendez by TKO. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, in his last fight we saw against Henderson, Melendez is just a wild animal. Everything he does is such a feral amount of energy and effort. I've never seen a Nishida fight before, but you can definitely tell he's a more methodical kind of fighter, but he just got completely outpaced by Melendez, who doesn't seem to be tired even after an almost 15-minute fight. It is our first of 2 championship fights for the evening. We even get the big pro wrestling style entrances. It is Gegard Mousasi against Renato Sobral. Gegard Mousasi somehow has more fights than there are days in a year. Currently sitting at 26-2-1, it would be easier for me to tell you all the people he hasn't beaten. He is making his Strikeforce debut tonight in the championship fight. He has been Dream Middleweight Grand Prix and the inaugural Dream Middleweight Champion, so he is used to being in this kind of high-pressure fight. Renato Sobral has been fighting since 1997 and had a 12-0 record until he came face-to-face with baby H-Bomb Dan Henderson. He is also a piece of shit who held a choke against David Heath too long at UFC 74, getting himself blacklisted from the company for life. He would then find himself on the island of Misfit Toys, Affliction, and Strikeforce, where we end up now. He is currently riding a 5-win streak. Fight begins, both guys seem to show a lot of respect with each other, which is odd for Babalu. They end up in the clinch, uppercuts exchanged by Gegard. He gets the takedown into side control. Gegard pushes him up against the cage and just starts teeing off lightning quick, heavy shots, and one of these 1,000 shots slip its way through, lands on the button, and Babalu is out cold. I don't even think Mousasi needs to take a shower after this. Hard to rate a fight that is 60 seconds long. But I'm going to go ahead and give it, oh boy. I'm going to say a 7, just for how all-encompassing Gegard Mousasi is. He won this fight, he won his Strikeforce debut, he won the championship, and looks like he just got out of bed. Babalu didn't even look like he was prepared for how quick this happened. The time has come, the moment we have all been waiting for. It is Gina Carano versus Cris Cyborg. Now, I already went over a lot of Cris Cyborg's career in the video we did on Strikeforce Miami, and because that is chronologically the next fight in Cyborg's career, there's not a whole lot new I can tell you. If you want the whole retrospective, go ahead and give our Strikeforce Miami video a shot. What I can tell you right now is that Cyborg is 7-1, with her only loss being her very first fight way back in 2005 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But I know why you're here. This is the reason everyone's here. Let's talk about Gina Carano. Carano is currently undefeated after 7 fights, mostly in Elite XC, where she would beat the likes of Julia Kenzie, Tanya Evinger, and Caitlin Young. She was an absolute pioneer when it comes to women's MMA, Ronda Rousey before Ronda Rousey, and the first major star when it came to women in the sport. And in fact, this card itself, the first major MMA card headlined by women, it is a very important moment for the sport, and she led the way with it. We start and immediately Cyborg takes the advantage with a bunch of shots against the cage and goes for a belly-to-belly suplex. Carano falls on top, but Cyborg ends up with a heel hook immediately. They get back to their feet, and Cyborg lands another couple of shots to try to take her down again. This is the most trouble we have ever seen Gina Carano in, and she lands a right hook. Cyborg responds very quickly with a counterpunch. Carano is trying to land that one big shot, but Cyborg is just walking through all of her punches. We end up back on the ground. Cyborg in half guard tries an Americana that looks pretty deep, but Carano gets her way out of it. Cyborg gets the stat guard and starts landing absolute bombs. The ref lets it go for as long as humanly possible, but steps in milliseconds before the horn sounds. He actually did not know the winner until a couple of seconds after the horn had sounded. This fight gets a 9 out of 10. There was so much going on, literally at every single point. There was not a moment to rest. There was not a moment of like, okay, we'll calm down and we'll like, the get to know ya, the judge and distance. No, both of these ladies they knew this was the main event. This was a major step for women's MMA and decided to make the absolute best of it. Cyborg would go on to defend the Strikeforce Women's Featherweight Championship up until December 17th, where she had the ill-fated positive steroid test that saw her stripped of the title. From there, she would go on to Invicta, then go on to the UFC, where they created an entire division just for her. But then Jermaine Duranamy, who was the champion at the time, refused to fight her. Cyborg would get the belt anyway, after fighting Tonya Evinger. After that, she would spend much of her time in Bellator and then the PFL, where she still fights to this day at a record of 28-2. Now, what happened to Gina Carano's MMA career after this? Nothing. As of August 15th, 2009, the day this fight happened, Gina Carano has never fought again. When the company was absorbed into the UFC, she was technically still under contract, but I don't think she plans on fighting them out. She would go on to make a career for herself in film and in television, most famously Fast and Furious 6, Deadpool, and The Mandalorian, where she would do nothing stupid and say nothing stupid, ending her career before it started, and definitely not end up as an alt-right grifter doing shitty Republican movies released by Breitbart News about Joe Biden's son. Overall, I'm going to give this card an 8 out of 10. It is a breezy card. It is a very quick watch. There are only 4 fights, and not a single one of them goes to a decision. Strikeforce is such a weirdly different animal. The vibe is different. The vibe is I don't know, looser, less corporate, and then you get to see something like Gina Carano and Cyborg, where, you know, women's MMA wasn't even a thing in the UFC at the time, and Dana was dead set against it. Don't let him tell you otherwise. If you were going to watch one fight from this show, make it the main event. It is the best fight on the card. But if you want a second one and aren't just watching the whole card for some reason, make it the Gilbert Melendez fight. He is an animalistic, feral kind of fighter, and is so much fun to watch. But let us know what you think in the comments below or on social media. We are everywhere at It's Not Cagefighting. Links in the description down below. And if you want your own retro review, a fully produced video like you just saw here, go on to patreon.com/itsnotcagefighting, become a $10 backer, and you get to nominate your very own card. I will sit here, I will watch the whole thing, and I will dictate it to you and tell you what I think. On top of that, you get a ton of other cool stuff. Like, the amount of value in the Patreon is insane. Plus, you would be helping us out directly, which, you know, I would appreciate. So that is patreon.com/itsnotcagefighting. But if you don't have the money, a like, a subscribe, a comment is great no matter what. We appreciate you all the same. So thank you guys very much for watching this edition of the Retro Review. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. And we will see you next time.